Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the I Am Norm round robin. It is round number 7, and my opponent in this round is Vlado Yakovlevich. He is from Bosnia. He is playing in our section. Normally, he's playing many tournaments in Europe, and without a doubt, this is, I think, the dumbest chess game I ever played in my life, and you're gonna see why. Mostly because literally all of my calculations in this game were incorrect. And yeah, I mean, it's basically my guess the ELO submission, so you get to laugh at me. And I was going to say that this is the last day of the tournament, which means the courses are on sale for the final day. Click the link in the description to check it out, but I'm going to tell you, after this game, you might not want to, you might reconsider. So, what do I know about Vlado? He plays knight f3 on move 1. And then depending on how you proceed, he moves one of his other 2 pawns. So if you play c5, he just goes for a symmetrical English. If you play d5, he plays a queen's pawn. If you play some nonsense, he'll probably just play like fianchetto. So very solid playing style, very annoying playing style. And what I decided prior to the game, looking at his database, was if we get to this position, you know, of course I can decline the gambit or I can accept it. And I decided that my best chances to win this game were to play DC and this bishop g4 line. Now, this bishop g4 line got popular in recent years. It also was played, obviously, in the past, but it's because Black was able to get some interesting dynamic play by developing the pieces toward the middle. The problem is that the engine gives a big advantage to White if White follows a certain line, and that line is, you know, this is normal. And then here, historically, Black has played knight d7 and is a little passive, but, you know, White is trying to apply some pressure. Black is defending. I apologize. In this position, the move knight c3 played, first kicking out my bishop. And now knight d7. But then recently, knight c6 became a thing until people started moving the bishop for a second time and pitting the knight. And I've had a few games here that just end in very bad positions, like, I mean, something like this, and White just has the full center, great development. I have almost no counterplay on the center. And yeah, bishop b5, also you can play queen a4 and then take. So before the game, I prepared the bishop b5 line, and I was like, if he knows 15 to 20 moves of theory in it for some reason, what are you gonna do? But I was thinking he was just going to play castle and play a little bit more solidly. I mean, his whole style seems a little bit more solid. And I played bishop d6. Now, here, as far as I know, there are like 2 plans. Advancing on the queen side and advancing in the center. And generally, White tries to accomplish this with moves like, you know, bishop back to e2, I castle, then maybe b3, bishop b2, or a3 and b4, and then trying to play for e4 and developing this bishop. I've had many games go like this. I was ready, you know, queen e8, queen e7, rook d8 here. But he played this move instantly, like literally instantly. And it's not a bad move, but he's not threatening to go e4 because he can't, you know, I just take his knight. And then if he takes like this, there's this. If he takes like this, then his king's just wide open. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what he's doing. And then he blitzes out this move. I'm like, wait, what? So the move g4 is playable, but it's normally played in positions like this when the bishop can get targeted. So Garry Kasparov has played like this with White. He takes the bishop and then actually puts this bishop back here. It's incredible. Bishop f1, and then bishop goes to g2 and stands very confidently. But I have never in my life, not in Blitz, not in any format, seen g4 and e4 without knight e5. And he played these moves instantly, and I couldn't, you know, at some point you gotta trust yourself. I'm like, I think he's making this up, like over the board. I mean, I've played this line maybe 50 to 70 times over the board and online. I've never seen this before. So to respond here, I have a couple of ways. First of all, I can play e5, but second of all, I was thinking to play bishop b4 here, which puts some pressure on his knight in his center. If he plays e5, I just go here. I thought maybe he would pin me, and this seemed unpleasant. And then you know, if h6, bishop h4, maybe bishop e7, but this just seems so passive. I mean, it just seems like I'm, you know, going there, going back. I decided to be more forcing, and I figured he was going to go d5, and then maybe here I would even sack my pawn in the center somehow, to try to create some counterplay. But, you know, maybe knight a5 targeting the bishop and c6. Maybe knight back to e7. Play this like a King's Indian kind of. But he took, and he took instantly. And at first glance, I'm like, what is he doing? Because if I take with the knight, and then we trade, I'm threatening to take this and take this. And if he takes my queen, and then I take, and then he plays f3, I mean, I don't know, this just seems so suspect. Like, okay, I don't know, I'm just gonna put my rooks here. I just have to make sure my bishop doesn't get stuck, but... So, I couldn't figure out why he took. Like, I thought his best move was d5, but he played it immediately. So I started thinking, okay, hold on. Let's buckle down. Let's try to refute this, because I don't believe in this. I don't think this is any good. So obviously, knight takes e5 is an idea, but what about bishop takes e5? It's a lot more forcing. The point is that I want to take the knight, and then I want to take the pawn. And I started calculating. What happens if he takes my queen, and then I take, then he takes, then I take, hitting this and this. He has to go here. I play knight e4. This didn't happen. I'm calculating this. And then he'll play f4 with the threat of hitting my knight and trapping my bishop. But I'm just in time. Knight c3 takes, and knight d3 just in time, hitting his rook. And now my bishop escapes. I'm just a pawn up. So I calculate that sequence, and then I'm like, okay, but what if he plays this first? Well, then obviously we might enter the same thing. But what if he goes back to e2? If he goes back to e2, then I just take on e4. Same thing, f4, knight c3 kind of ideas. Or even worse, queen h4 if he doesn't trade queens with me. And then I'm just getting in. I mean, it's like mate. I mean, he just literally gets mated. So I don't know what he's going to play. But then, you know, I start realizing in this position, he doesn't need to rush moving his bishop passively. For example, he can even defend the bishop with the queen, and now he is very much threatening f4, f5, which doesn't look very pleasant at all. I have to win this pawn, or else my position is very bad. So, you know, then there's also bishop b3. But in this position, after bishop takes e5, he spent like 40 minutes. I'm not even joking. He thought for about 40 minutes. So I'm walking around the room just losing my mind, basically. I'm like, I guess I'm just winning. I mean, I guess he just blundered bishop takes e5. Like, why did he blitz the opening? I mean, he's just thinking so long. I mean, naturally, like visually speaking, he really only has like a couple of options, right? Take something or develop the bishop and pin my knight to the queen so I can't take his pawn. I don't know. Thought 40 minutes, and then he took my bishop. Now, while I was sitting at the board, I thought for about 5 minutes here, and my options are obviously take the queen first or take the knight. Now, I rejected just taking the knight because I realized at this point he could either move his bishop or defend it, and I'm not going to win the e-pawn. Like, this was the whole idea. It was like to hit the bishop, it's got to move, and then I'm going to win the pawn. But in this case, I'm not winning anything. And maybe I can play h5. I thought about getting all exotic here with h5 and, you know, playing like this. But I don't know, something about just this coming attack at some point. Obviously, there's a check, but I just felt like this was very wrong to play chess like this. So I thought a little bit, and I decided I'm not going to play knight takes e5. So I instead calculated queen takes d1 first, in between move. And I calculated that after this, he's going to take with the knight. I'm going to take attacking his bishop. He'll go back, and then I'm going to be able to win this pawn. And if he takes with the rook, I'm going to go here, attacking his bishop, and then I'm going to take the pawn. Right? That's the idea. That's what I'm going to do. So he takes with the rook. I take. He goes here. I play knight takes e4. And I realized I've hung a piece. He plays f4. You say, Levy, what? You just told me? Yeah. What did I tell you? I told you that when the rook is on e1, this works. That this whole sequence works because the rook is on e1 and I can attack it before my bishop gets trapped. In the game, I literally just completely forgot that the rook is on the wrong square. And even though this comes with tempo, my knight, I mixed up my knights. Do you understand what I did? I mixed up my knights. when the rook is on e1, I take on c3, and the rook is, for example, like just visually, this is not what happened, but visually, there's a rook on e1, I'm not touching it, but here I am. What I did here is I forgot that I'm touching the rook with the wrong knight. I'm touching his rook with the wrong knight. I don't have a follow-up knight move. Bishop c2 doesn't work. He goes here. I have two hanging pieces. So he plays f4, and I want to resign. And I'm not even like that mad. I'm just sort of like, deserved. Like, I mean, I don't know what to say. Just one of the most absurd blind spots I've ever had in my life. Ever. I've never blundered like this ridiculously. I don't know. This is like insane. So like, okay. I've got about 1 hour on the clock. He has about 30 minutes. So from this point forward, I'm going to go full tilt mode. I'm just going to play at light speed. So either he beats me as fast as possible, I can get home to Lucy and dog, mostly Lucy. And then, you know, just hang out on the couch and be sad. Or I can save the game because he's going to get low on time and he's going to screw something up. So what do? Bring my knight back. He traps my bishop. I go here and I come up with this idea to trade the knight for the bishop and open up both rooks. Okay? Open up both rooks. And the ironic thing about this is it's the top stockfish line and I played it in 20 seconds. You know, on the other stuff I spend 15 minutes and I hang a piece. He plays here. I throw in this because otherwise my piece was trapped. And I have 2 pawns for the bishop. To be honest with you, if I gave this position to intermediate players like 1500s, I wouldn't be shocked if black wins a lot because it's a little bit difficult here to develop your pieces. And I'm a couple of moves away from creating some, you know, problems for the king maybe. So, but at this level, it's completely lost. So what does he do? Brings his king up. I play rook e8. He goes here. I could have brought my knight in a little bit sooner here. I probably should have, but I really didn't like that. You know, if you give him a couple of moves, suddenly he's threatening to trade rooks with me. And if he trades my rooks, I'm going to lose this endgame. So here, again, I blitz out a terrible move, h5. This is a bad move because it's completely hinging upon one trap. I have one trap, basically. And the trap is that take, knight takes h5. Obviously runs into this, and, you know, this looks kind of scary for white. Furthermore, if he plays something like, I don't even know, like bishop g5, for example, then my idea was to throw in this move. So it doesn't stop my move at all, and then I can try to trap his bishop. It's a very funny position. So I calculated this, again, only playing for traps. He thought for a bit, and he played the best move, which is stopping my h4 and locking down the square. So not only have I tried to sack a pawn, I also gave him an outpost for his bishop, which he didn't have a couple moves ago. He was actually kind of struggling to develop his bishop. But now I not only, you know, gave him an outpost, I also don't really have any more threats, and he's going to trade rooks with me by force. But what he missed here, and what he made significantly harder for himself, was the following. Knight takes g5, he took, and originally my intention had been to try to chase his pawn down with rook e5. This simply loses to rook f1, rook f5, or knight f5. But what I found was this incredible resource. This is just honestly an amazing move here that gets me his g-pawn. And again, the reason that the more pieces that come off the board, the closer we get to a draw, is because a knight is not a very mobile piece. Rook and bishop versus rook and 4 pawns, like what we would have here if this was a bishop, is probably more winnable because the bishop can not only pressure this side, it can also pressure my king. So, you know, the knight is a little bit slow and kind of needs to cover the king. So I just need to win this pawn, and I play this very nice move, rook f4. This is an important move because he has no way to prevent me getting his pawn. If he plays rook c1, I play this, and he can't take because he's pinned h4. So, you know, he's going to lose one of his pawns, and maybe he'll leave me with 2 here. So I'm starting to build confidence, and his time is now not 30 minutes. It's like 20, it's like 15. I'm like, how's he going to win this game? I mean, I have an hour, and I'm just playing every move instantly. So he plays knight h5, I win his pawn. Now, objectively speaking, I believe 100% he is still winning. It's just a question of how. I think Stockfish would win this with white and draw this with black, though. So he plays, I play rook c5 with the intention to go here. Basically, I think the plan that he came up with in this game was very logical. I need to keep my king somewhere in the vicinity of my pawns. I really should not be getting active with my king, The question of whether I move the g pawn or not is also intelligent to ask. Like, do I go here, or is the pawn more of a target there? Another important question is the rook trade going to lead to a draw or a lost endgame? Like, you know, if I mean, obviously it hangs a rook, but like, is this a draw or a win for white? Seriously, I was thinking this the entire game because, you know, on the one hand, you would think he just wins my pawns, but that's not so fast because his knight has to cover my pawn. And if his king ever goes after my pawn, I get in. And then I'm beelining to c2. So yeah, there's a lot of questions to be asked. So he goes rook g1. I play rook a5, you know, threatening some and move my king up. Knight d3, and I'm just bouncing around. And again, he has about 10 minutes on the clock now to figure out how to win this endgame. This is completely different than the position where he won my piece. Like, he could have played this, I think, a lot better. He didn't have to go to g3. He could have went for a rook trade immediately. But I was, I think, just being annoying as an opponent. Like, I was playing every move immediately, you know? And he wanted to keep up. He didn't want to sink into thought. He's like, I'm completely winning. Let's just finish the job. But he did it in an inaccurate way. Like, he went the wrong way. He traded, I think, the wrong piece. He should have kept the bishop on the board. And to his credit, I'm sure he still thought he was completely winning, and I don't disagree at all. The other question here is, you know, what am I going to do with my pawns? Like, do I want this? Is that the formation that I'm looking for? Is this the formation that I'm looking for? Obviously, this is hanging right now, but let's just say it's not. Like, is this what I want? I don't know. I didn't think that this is what I wanted because this feels very stretched thin and a lot of holes here. So he plays king e4. You know, I give him a check, give him a couple of checks. He kicks my rook out. I centralize it. He goes rook c3. King e7, not really worried about any of these moves, you know, just don't hang your rook. And then he plays king f3, and I realize he has an idea, and his idea is to play here and then bring the rook around. Like, if he dominates the g file, if he pressures me on the g file itself and this side, I might have some problems, so I need to keep his rook off the g file. So I brought my king, and then here I thought for a bit. I think at this point he's got about 5 minutes on the clock. And I'm thinking, you know, do I check him? Do I go here? Do I play a5? How do I basically do nothing? At the same time, I'm also looking for not just really how I do nothing, but how do I create a fortress where I can do nothing but not have to worry about any of his moves? You know what I mean? Like, you can do nothing, rook d5, rook here, but he's going to try to win, okay? And maybe if I can, like, somehow configure a setup where, like, something like this. Like, is this just a draw? Or is this too passive and this might lose? I don't know, right? I don't know. I'm fighting with this the entire time. So I play rook g4. And he tricks me here. I mean, I thought his idea was to play rook c1, but I just help him out. I mean, I open the door for his rook. And then here it goes from bad to worse because he checks me, and I have a choice of where to go. I'm like, do I keep my king in the middle, close to both pawns? What do I do? King e7, you know, where do I go passively toward these pawns? I just said maybe I don't want to do that. So I overthink it for a second time this game, and suddenly he has chances to win the game with the move rook d8. This is an incredible idea. I completely missed the fact that he infiltrates to the back rank. In some ways, it's like fitting, you know, like I've played, I mean, I told you, it's like one of the dumbest games I've ever played. Like, the rook literally just moved. Why would you not follow it down to the end of the board? I don't know. I just never thought he would hit these pawns from the other side. I only looked at it from this perspective. So, so that's exactly what happened. And I'm like, oh my God. And, you know, his threat is to go here, make my pawn move, and then attack my b pawn. So this is like the idea. And this is how he would win, because now he would by force win one of my pawns. So I have to come back, and I have to play a5 and guard it with my rook. So I was smart here. Then b5, and now a4. So he forced me into this structure, and I thought he was making progress. I was getting frustrated, but he's got about 2-3 minutes on the clock, and he's sort of just shuffling. Right? We're shuffling here a little bit. I'm just moving my king back and forth. Everything seems defended. By the way, we cannot trade pawns. Like, I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the endgame. Rook and knight versus rook is just a draw. It's unwinnable completely. Rook and bishop versus rook is also a draw, but much harder to defend. Knight is not very difficult to defend against. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy. You know, let's just move back and forth. We're not doing anything. And I'm like, oh, he's trying to bring his king. Okay. So I got to think here for a quick second. Do I give him a check, and then do I put my rook here? No, I don't like that because I'm in jail now. Now, what I completely missed here is I have c5 check. See, I always thought that this move had to be played with my king defending, but if he takes, I get one of his pawns. And again, once I get one pawn, I'm going to get the second pawn, and it basically makes no difference anymore. Like I'm getting this pawn. It doesn't matter if it's check, because I'm getting a3. Once I get the last pawn, it's just a draw. He can come back and defend, but then it's check, and then, you know, he might either lose his knight or lose his pawn. So, yeah, I mean, and I just didn't even think to put my rook in jail like this. I was like, no, I have to, you know, prepare this. Then he goes here. And I'm like, uh-oh. Remember I told you a while ago how this is a drawn endgame? I don't think it's a draw anymore. Stockfish might see it, but I don't think this is a draw. I'm out of moves. If I go, he comes in. I mean, I'm just out of moves. And, you know, I can't allow this because, look at this. Look at this. I've lost my pawns and I can't make my queen. I lose the game. So that's not good. So I can't trade rooks. I'm like, oh, God. So I think here for about 10 minutes. He's got maybe like a minute on the clock at this point. I'm thinking rook f3, but then knight d3. And then if I go back to f7 to play defense, he plays rook g6. If I give him a check, he plays king e4. I give him a check, like, wait a minute. Am I losing? I'm straight up like, I just worked for so long to not lose this game. Am I really going to lose it by Zugzwang? I can't move anything. And then he just plays king c5. No. And I'm sitting like laughing at myself like, I fought back. He has a minute on the clock. I fought back from that absolute garbage. And I find the move c5 check. This brought like a whole new life into me because I created the same idea to go to b3. There is a major difference between doing it this way and doing it in the way that it could have been done a few moves ago with the king on c7. And I will show you why. Okay, I'm going to show you why. It's very important that I had done it in this situation without my king on b6 because I thought that in this position, he checks me, I go king a5, he takes my pawn, right? Or check here, he takes my pawn, I take his pawn, and then I'm quick enough to win his pawn. And what I had calculated was rook g6, king a5, takes my pawn, rook b2, knight d3, rook b3, knight b4, I made it! But I have check. I deflect him off his, I deflect him off the c file, and now this is not mate because this is no longer protected. You see, if I had taken the pawn right away, he mates me on a6. But by deflecting him, I save the game and I save the draw. And we repeat moves a few moves later. But the plot twists are not over because I have two major reveals for you. First of all the way back to the opening, remember how I was so mad that I blundered the move f4? It turns out I'm already lost. It's +2 already because if I don't take the pawn, I have no moves. His threat is f4, f5. It's insane. If this, he removes the guard of my bishop. So the mistake was taking on d1. The mistake was also not taking on, it was not, you know, I wasn't taking this. But you know what the craziest thing is? He played a perfect opening. I went back. All of these moves are the top moves of the computer. His prep was bulletproof. I will never play this line again. Ever. He is retiring me, unless it's blitz. The whole time I was like, what is he doing? And he spent 40 minutes on this move, so I just got false confidence. But the major reveal is all the way down here. The major reveal is all the way down here because c5 rook b3 loses. This genius plan loses the game. He doesn't take my pawn or this pawn. He plays knight e4. Because when I play rook b2, he plays this. And I'm in jail. And I'm getting mate threatened on me. And I have like no way to run. If I run here, he has discover check, winning my rook. If I check him, he goes like this. He does not take the pawn because then I check him again. He goes behind. He doesn't touch my pawns. And he mates me with his knight. It doesn't matter. I have no way. I mean, this is findable, but not with 1 minute on the clock. I mean, I didn't even see it, and I had like 40 minutes. Because you just assume he will take one of the pawns. I mean, white just can't ignore every pawn. So even this genius plan that I thought I came up with to save the game doesn't work at all. In this position, he can play knight e4, rook b2, knight d6, and avoid all my pawns and sneak into my position using my own pawns against me, and I lose the game. But I drew, and yeah, I mean, what can I say? What an absolutely stupid game by me.